Yes, it is a little bit after the fact, but we're finally getting into the review of All Out. And boy, do I have a lot to talk about. So let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What is happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan. One second. And welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review, our fourth ever episode, and it's the last one before the new weekly television show starts on TNT on Wednesday nights, October the 2nd. At the time I'm recording this, it is September the 15th, so a little over 2 weeks after All Out, and we're going to be getting into all of that as we barrel towards the debut episode of AEW on TNT, which doesn't have an official show name yet, but I'll be honestly disappointed if it's not Wednesday Night Dynamite, because I actually kind of like that name. They did put in for a trademark for that particular name, so a lot of us are expecting that to be the name of the show. So, but these guys are booking a lot of shows in advance. Got all of October, all the Wednesdays in October, almost all of the Wednesdays in November. There's one in particular we haven't gotten a date for yet, which is the 20th, I believe, and they already got their next pay-per-view event on November the 9th, which is called Full Gear. And in that particular pay-per-view, it'll be Cody Rhodes against Chris Jericho for the AEW Championship. Chris Jericho. We're going to be talking a lot about him when it comes to this review, especially at the end of it. But first impressions of AEW All Out, which is what we're going to be reviewing today. Was it worth the $50 purchase? Because I actually decided, you know what, I'm going to put up the $50, and be able to watch this, straight up without having to jump through any, fucking hoops to, try to watch this damn show. So I straight up paid the $50, and was it worth the $50 purchase? It was worth that and then some. Some of the stuff that we saw on this pay-per-view was absolutely insane. I mean, there were several instances where I audibly just went, "Oh shit," for a lot of the bumps and stuff. I mean, this show wasn't totally perfect. There were some matches that definitely underwhelmed. There was a botch or two that literally sucked the air out of the arena. We'll be getting to all that. But, I mean, overall, this show was just, I mean, even, the buy-in was probably the best buy-in out of all four shows that we've seen so far. I think this was definitely the best buy-in. And the main card was just crazy good. I mean, let me take a look at this here. I gave out 2 5-star shows, or 2 5-star ratings. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 matches got at least 4 stars. The lowest rating I gave on the main card was 3 stars, and the lowest rating I gave overall was 2.5. If that gives you any indication how fucking good this show was. Because it was. Like I said, there were some botches that definitely took away from some matches. But other than that, I mean, this was, I think, probably the best show that AEW has put on so far. Even more so than Double or Nothing. And Double or Nothing was just awesome. And it kind of, made me say, I'm going to give All Elite Wrestling a chance. Because, honestly, I fell out of watching wrestling on a full-time basis probably back around 2009, 2010. I mean, it gradually. I mean, I was watching WWE, Raw and SmackDown, but eventually over time, the product just got staler and staler, and it eventually just became background noise. And then I just eventually just stopped watching altogether. And I mean, I still like to watch wrestling. I mean, I do like watching like highlight videos and shit like that. But as far as just watching a whole show, I mean, I hadn't really watched a whole show, in a long time until I think maybe the 2018 Royal Rumble, I want to say, was when I finally watched a full show for the first time in a long time. It was alright for the most part. But yeah, it didn't really get me back into watching wrestling full time until I learned about All Elite Wrestling. And I said, you know what, even though I was still a bit leery because I didn't know, what to expect, I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll watch this show and kind of see if I want to continue from there. Well, obviously, I'm in my 4th episode of All Elite Review. So, needless to say, they have definitely sparked something in me that said, yeah, I want to get back into watching professional wrestling on a full-time basis again. And All Elite Wrestling seems to be scratching that itch. Especially considering the type of show they put on at All Out. Because a lot of these guys definitely went all out, literally, in this show. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy some of the shit these guys were pulling off, guys and gals. Because it's just like, man, are these people trying to kill each other? And of course, there were 2 matches in particular that got 5 stars. One shouldn't be a surprise. The other one might surprise you a little bit. But we'll get to it when we get to it. So let's go ahead and get into the review. Oh, before we get into that, a little bit of news coming out of this. Kylie Ray, who was part of the Fatal 4-Way at Double or Nothing, has parted ways with All Elite Wrestling. From what we could tell, it's some kind of injury issue or something else of that nature. But she decided to ask for her release from All Elite Wrestling, and unlike WWE, which seems to, Vince just seems just too goddamn stubborn for his own good. AEW is like, okay, we'll give you an early release from your contract, and it sounds like it was very, very amicable. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Kylie Ray was back on the AEW roster at some point in the future. Because it just sounds like she has some personal issues to work out before she gets back in the ring, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. So there's some other things that I need to talk about, but we'll talk about it when we get to the relevant parts here. So 2019 AEW All Out, starting with the buy-in. There were 2 matches on the buy-in. The first of which was the Women's Casino Battle Royal, basically similar to the men's from Double or Nothing, where you had 5. Well, actually no, it was 5 wrestlers picking out from the 4 different suits. At random, they would draw a suit, and the particular group of wrestlers would come out. 1 second, I need to pull it up here. Okay. Alright, so it's cool that I can pull this up that fast on this computer. It's nice having a fast computer. Okay, so of course you had the 4 suits, the clubs, diamonds, spades, and hearts, and of course the Joker card at the very end. The first group that had to come out was the clubs, consisting of Shalandra Royal, the librarian Leva Bates, Fabi Apache, Priscilla Kelly, and Nyla Rose. Three of them I had never heard of before, to be honest. Of course, I've seen Leva Bates and, of course, Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose basically eliminated all four of the wrestlers from the clubs, and she was in the ring alone for a while. The next group to come out was the Diamonds, which consisted of the Bad Girl, Penelope Ford, Shazza McKenzie, Sadie Gibbs, Big Swole, and Dr. Britt Baker, returning from, and she was cleared to come back from her concussion that she suffered at Fight for the Fallen. The next group to come out of that was the Spades, and featured Tenille Dashwood, formerly Emma from WWE, Evilise, which is, someone who I was looking forward to seeing, B. Priestley, and of course there was, again, story continuity. Hey, Britt Baker went right after B. Priestley when she came out. How about that? Story continuity, and there is actually a little bit more to that at the end of the match. Brandy Rhodes and Awesome Kong. Of course, that's kind of no surprise there that Brandy Rhodes would come out with Awesome Kong. I'm actually kind of surprised that Brandy Rhodes didn't come out as the Joker, which honestly wouldn't have been the end of the world. What would have been the end of the world is if Brandy Rhodes would have won this match, because it would have been like, no. Now, to her credit, Brandy did actually pull off some pretty cool moves in this match. So it is a little bit of an improvement, but I'm still not sold on her, to be honest. You need to put together a couple of good matches in a row before I start believing that you actually have, what it takes. Just my personal opinion. The last group to come in were the Hearts, consisting of Allie, Nicole Savoy, Teal Piper, who is the daughter of the late Roddy Piper, ODB, and Jazz. So that was kind of interesting. And then the Joker card was Mercedes Martinez, which she was on NXT recently, before, I guess, coming over to AEW for this Battle Royal. And she actually got quite a bit of a pop. So those are your 21 participants. Order of elimination. Shalandra Royal was eliminated by Nyla Rose. And then Fabi Apache was eliminated by Nyla Rose. Priscilla Kelly, and then Leva Bates, all eliminated by Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose had 10 eliminations in this match. Let's see. The fifth elimination was Shazza McKenzie. And then Big Swole. Shazza McKenzie was eliminated by Britt Baker. Big Swole was eliminated by Nyla Rose. Penelope Ford by Nyla Rose. Tenille Dashwood was eliminated by Awesome Kong. Evilise was eliminated by Awesome Kong in one of the lamest ways ever. I mean, Evilise was put onto the apron, and then Awesome Kong did a spinning back fist. The problem with that was the spinning back fist was one of the weakest I'd ever seen. That was weak sauce, piece of shit. And that was a pretty shitty way to eliminate Evilise. I did not like that whatsoever. Then Nicole Savoy was eliminated by Nyla Rose. Teal Piper by ODB. Awesome Kong was eliminated by B. Priestley, Sadie Gibbs, and ODB. Jazz was eliminated by Nyla Rose. ODB by Britt Baker. Brandy Rhodes was eliminated by Britt Baker and Allie. So Allie getting a little bit of payback on Brandy Rhodes. So that was nice. That meant that Brandy was not going to be one of the two that will be competing for the AEW Women's World Championship on the first episode of the television show. So that's good. Then Allie was eliminated by Nyla Rose. Sadie Gibbs was eliminated by B. Priestley. Mercedes Martinez was eliminated by Britt Baker. B. Priestley was eliminated by Britt Baker. And then Britt Baker was eliminated by Bea Priestley and Nyla Rose. Even though Priestley was already eliminated, Priestley grabbed Baker's arm, and then Nyla Rose came over and eliminated her. And your winner of the Women's Casino Battle Royal, after being one of the first to start, Nyla Rose. So, my highlights of this match. Give me 1 second. Alright. So, highlights of this match. Rose tossing Priscilla over the top rope. Penelope Ford with a back handspring elbow. Nyla Rose with a double choke slam, which was pretty cool. Big Swole with a wheelbarrow flatliner, which was kind of cool. Rose's German suplex, which always looks good. And then Baker going after Bea Priestley on the ramp. Continuity. It's a beautiful thing. Evalise's Frankensteiner when she got into the ring was pretty cool. Tenille Dashwood's butterfly suplex. Brandy Rhodes did kind of a backspin off of Nyla Rose, I think. And then did a stunner, which actually looked pretty good. Nicole Savoy did a tope suicida to the outside, which took out like 4 people, which was pretty cool. Mercedes Martinez a spine buster. She also did a Northern Lights suplex, a German suplex, a curb stomp, and a back suplex, basically when she came out to the ring, after she came out as the Joker. So she was on fire for a bit. Allie with a Death Valley driver, which kind of surprised me. I didn't expect her to do that. Sadie Gibbs with a springboard lariat and head scissors takedown. Sadie Gibbs with a gorilla press drop, which actually, this actually led to a fight backstage between herself and Bea Priestley, because Gibbs did a gorilla press drop on Bea Priestley, but apparently either Priestley didn't land on her feet like she was supposed to, or she dropped down, hit the mat, but basically no-sold the move and eliminated Sadie Gibbs. I think that's what it was. Let me double check. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Gibbs tried to do a gorilla press drop. Bea Priestley no-sold it and threw her out of the ring to eliminate her, which apparently wasn't part of the plan, because after they got backstage, basically Sadie Gibbs went after Bea Priestley, basically took a swing at her for the most part, which is not scripted. It was not scripted. This was like legitimate heat. And apparently Gibbs was not very happy that Priestley basically no-sold her move. So that's kind of interesting. And this is not one of those cases where there's like, oh, it's a toxic backstage environment. No, I think this is literally just an isolated incident where, Priestley basically kind of didn't do what she was supposed to do, I guess, in that sense. Britt Baker with a nice sling blade, Rose with a side powerbomb, Britt Baker with a super kick. Of course, she has one of the best super kicks in the business right now as far as the women's side goes. Bea Priestley with a roundhouse kick, Baker with another super kick. Nyla Rose was knocked onto the apron but did a nice little cartwheel kick. And I think it was when her, Priestley, and Baker were left. They tried to eliminate Nyla Rose, but Rose did a cartwheel kick, which was pretty cool. Britt Baker with a Canadian Destroyer, I think, on Bea Priestley, which was pretty nice. Kind of emulating her boyfriend, Adam Cole. Baker suplexes Rose off of the turnbuckle, which was pretty cool. And then Baker eliminated Bea Priestley, I should say. But then Priestley, like I said, grabbed Britt Baker's arm, and then Nyla Rose basically threw her over the top rope to win the Casino Battle Royal. I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of how that went down. I mean, I don't mind. Let me say this. I don't mind Nyla Rose winning. I just wish it was, just between her and Britt Baker deciding, who would win the match, on their own merits and not from outside interference from someone who was already eliminated from the fucking match. I mean, on the other hand, I do understand it. I mean, Bea Priestley and Britt Baker, they have this little rivalry going on right now. Story continuity from Fight for the Fallen. I'm just not a fan of how this match ended. The match was kind of sloppy at times, but then again, that's how a battle royal usually is. I gave this match 2.5 stars out of 5. It was definitely the weakest match on the card, but I mean, for it to be 2.5 stars out of 5 and be the weakest, when in the past I've given a match 0 stars or even 1 star, that's still pretty solid. And we have one of our contenders for the inaugural AEW Women's World Championship. The other side of that coin would be determined on the main card, which we'll get to in a bit. The other match on the buy-in was Private Party versus Angelico and Jack Evans. This was another pretty good match. So, of course, two, high-flying tag teams, who I think are going to do some great things in AEW. I mean, let's be honest here. The tag team division in AEW is stacked. I mean, stacked. So, the new tag team title tournament that's basically going to start, I think, at the first episode of the television show, it's going to be crazy. This tag team title tournament is going to be, I think a lot of people are going to be invested in it because the tag team division is just on fire right now in All Elite Wrestling. They basically wanted to prove they got the best tag team division in all of professional wrestling, and I mean all over the world. And when you look at, pretty much all the matches that they put on so far in the tag team division, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with them because these tag team matches are crazy. And there's a couple in particular, especially on the main card, that certainly stole the show as well. But, so here we go. Private Party versus Angelico and Jack Evans. Both teams were still looking for their first official win on the roster. So, highlights of this match. There was some good mat wrestling between Angelico and Isaiah Cassidy. Cassidy with an arm drag and a one-leg drop kick. Evans does a nice little ring entrance when he was tagged in. Had a nice little exchange by Evans and Quinn. And that's Mark Quinn, who wears the glasses. Evans with a nice tornado kick. I love Jack Evans' tornado kick. It looks absolutely awesome. Angelico and Evans with a double stomp back suplex combo. Seen that before. It looks nice. Evans with a roll through into an inverted armbar. Cassidy with a springboard shotgun drop kick. Cassidy with a Frankensteiner on the outside. That looked pretty good. Cassidy with an Acai moonsault and a springboard moonsault. So the high flying was pretty much already going on. And Private Party with a camel clutch double stomp combo, which is another one of their patented moves. Another one of their patented moves was Cassidy with the Skin the Cat Tornado DDT, where he basically, where Quinn is basically on the apron, and then Cassidy flips over, braces himself on his partner's back, flips back over onto the shoulder of one of their opponents, spins around into a tornado DDT. It's actually pretty cool looking. Cassidy with a somersault stunner, and also an assisted sliced bread, or Shiranui as its base name is called. And it looked pretty devastating. I mean, I think it was on Jack Evans, and he landed hard on the back of his head. So that looked pretty nasty. Cassidy with a corkscrew plancha to the outside. Quinn with a beautiful shooting star press. I mean, holy God. He has one of the best shooting star presses in the business. There's a lot of people who do some really good shooting stars. Jack Evans with a spider German suplex. And Evans and Angelico with their assisted 450 splash, which always looks good. Mark Quinn with the Pele kick. And then Quinn does an avalanche poison Frankensteiner to Jack Evans. Nearly botched it. I mean, that could have gone really bad for Evans because, I mean, he damn near landed on top of his head. The poison Frankensteiner, which is basically an inverted Frankensteiner, that's definitely not an easy move to pull off because you need perfect choreography with that one because, I mean, the guy you're doing it to basically has to do a backflip and they're basically blind. So they kind of have to go on your momentum. And this one was nearly botched, and there was actually a botched one in another match that we're going to be getting to in a little bit. And that one actually sucked the wind out of the arena. But then Cassidy hits a poison Frankensteiner of his own, and it looked good. And that took Jack Evans out of the match. And then Private Party hit their double team finisher, an avalanche Frankensteiner cutter combo that they call the Gin and Juice for the 3 count and the victory. But yeah, other than that, nearly botched poison Frankensteiner from Quinn. This was a very solid pre-show match. I give it 3.75 stars out of 5. And then Evans and Angelico attack Private Party from behind, basically being sore losers, especially considering that they haven't won a match yet. So yeah, I probably looking at these guys turning into basically mega heels for the foreseeable future. All right, now we get to the main card. And the first match on the main card is a 6-man tag with SoCal Uncensored, Frankie Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, and the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels versus Jurassic Express, which is Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marco Stunt. I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now. Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy are probably the most over tag team on AEW's roster right now, even more so than the Lucha Brothers, even more so than probably even the Young Bucks right now. I mean, it's a simple concept of a boy and his dinosaur, and it is so over right now. It's not even funny. I mean, they got a massive pop when they came out, and a lot of the moves that they did, I mean, they got a large crowd reaction. I mean, the crowd was into them. And I am going to say something about that when I'm done with this review. When I'm done looking at all my notes, and there's some other stuff that I want to talk about afterwards, and where I think they should go with the championships. And what kind of mid-card championships I think they should introduce. But we'll get to that when we get to it, whenever that may be. Because we're just now getting to the first match on the main card, and we're already a half hour into this review. This is going to be another long one, folks, so buckle up, get yourself like a meat and cheese plate like I usually do. Maybe some popcorn or something like that, because this is going to be a long-ass review. Oh, boy. Okay, so highlights of this match. We got some good mat wrestling between Kazarian and Jungle Boy. Kazarian with his usual 3-hit combo where he basically does a kick, a knee strike, and then a lariat. It always looks good. I love that 3-hit combo. SCU with a Manhattan drop, face buster, and an STO combo. That was pretty cool. Jungle Boy with a Frankensteiner, and then an Arabian arm drag, which is basically he springs off the top rope into a backflip, and then does an arm drag, and then he does a drop kick. Luchasaurus with a drop suplex. Luchasaurus was a big star of this match because there's some shit that he did. I mean, this Luchasaurus is a big guy. I mean, he's like damn near 7 foot tall. And some of the shit this guy does is just insane. And we'll get to that when we get to it. Stunt with a Frankensteiner, and then a Frankensteiner on Kazarian. Stunt with a Tope Suicida. Jungle Boy with an Acai Moonsault. And then Luchasaurus, and then they were like, hey, Luchasaurus, how about you do something? And then Luchasaurus bounces off the ropes and does a step-up somersault plancha to the outside. And I'm just like, holy shit. That was awesome. And then Stunt with an assisted crossbody. Kazarian with a leg lariat. Scorpio Sky with a double stomp. SCU did a sit-out power bomb neckbreaker combo, I think what it was. That was pretty cool. Jungle Boy with a nice lariat. And then Luchasaurus came in, and he was just like wrecking shop. He did a flapjack. Then, of course, he did his tail whip roundhouse kick. Did another high kick. And then a choke slam, and then a standing moonsault. And it was just like, Jesus Christ, man. Then Jurassic Express did an assisted tornado DDT where Marco Stunt basically got launched into the air onto, I think it was either Frankie Kazarian or Scorpio Sky, and then tried to do like a tornado DDT, and then got a big assist from Jungle Boy and spun him around and then hit the tornado DDT. That was pretty cool, and it got a huge pop from the crowd. But then SCU took over with a celebrity rehab back suplex knee smash combo. Kazarian does a combination slingshot Frankensteiner guillotine leg drop. And then SCU hits their best Meltzer ever backflip tombstone pile driver, stuffed tombstone pile driver on Stunt and Jungle Boy for the 3 count and the win. And the crowd didn't really like that too much. Of course, this also means that Jurassic Express is also winless in AEW so far. But this was definitely one hell of a 6-man tag and a great way to open the show. I gave this match 4 stars out of 5. Excellent way to open the show. And then came a very much anticipated match. Kenny Omega versus Pac. So, from what I saw on their website, Pac is now an official part of the AEW roster from the looks of it. So I guess he fulfilled his obligations to Dragon Gate and can now focus on All Elite Wrestling. And he was a replacement in this match for Jon Moxley, who unfortunately, of course, got that MRSA staph infection in his elbow, for which he needed surgery for. But they have booked, as the dog frickin' barks. One second. Alright. So, like I said, this was a bit of an anticipated match. Of course, Jon Moxley had to be replaced by Pac after the elbow surgery. However, they are going to try to do Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley again at Full Gear. So, one of the things that I noticed, alright, sorry about that. But like I was saying, Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley will be facing each other at Full Gear, assuming that they don't have any more problems. One of the things that I noticed during their entrances, during Pac's and Kenny Omega's entrances, was they showed Omega's record in singles and tag team competition. So apparently they are serious about, records actually mattering in AEW, which I think is pretty cool. To that end, I'm also going to be doing like a ranking system of my own, with my own set of stuff. I'll explain all that at the end of this review. So, highlights of the match. Early on, Pac flips out of the Kataru Crusher, which is basically Omega leaping, basically doing a one-legged leapfrog over and then trying to do like a Jericho-style bulldog. But Pac kind of flipped out of it. Pac with a Frankensteiner and also counters Omega's slingshot dive. Pac with a flapjack into the ring apron and a missile shotgun dropkick. Omega hits a lariat and then a dropkick into a diving somersault plancha. Hits a nice missile dropkick and then a fisherman buster right afterwards. Then Omega does his Singapore roll, but misses the moonsault. Pac with a satellite DDT, and then a moonsault to the outside, and he also hits a 450 splash, which looked good. Omega hits a buckle bomb and then a sky high. Does a drop kick counter. Omega does the perfect driver onto the knee. Then, of course, hits his patented V trigger knee strike, and then a German suplex. Pac does a back body drop counter, and then a slingshot cutter, which looked really good. Pac hit a snap German suplex, and then a deadlift German suplex pin combo for a 2 count. Omega with a snake ice counter and then a snap dragon suplex, one of his patented moves. Omega hits another V trigger. Pac hits a super kick, and then Omega hits a couple more V triggers. And this was the part of the match that really sucked the wind out of it. Pac tried to go for a Poison Frankensteiner, but it was horribly botched. I mean, it didn't look good at all, and you could tell from the crowd, it basically sucked the wind out of that arena, and it really put a damper on this match as a whole. And it really affected my rating for this match. I mean, this was easily a 4.5 star match that was going on here, but then that botched Poison Rana was, it was not good. You know, and the fact that it came from 2 guys who are 2 of the best workers in the world, it made it even more surprising. Omega goes for the one-winged angel, but Pac locks it into like a kind of a abdominal stretch, like cross, like if you're going for a cross pin, but also had like a neck lock of sorts. He calls it the brutalizer, and surprisingly, actually passes Kenny Omega out, quote unquote, to get the win. So a little bit surprising that they allowed Pac to go over Kenny Omega in this one. Of course, if you watched Being the Elite, the episode that they posted this past Monday, it looks like Kenny Omega is starting to show signs of his heel persona. So that might be the direction that they're going in. But yeah, this was still a good match. It just had that one really bad botch right at the end, and that really affects my score for this match. I give this match 3.75 stars out of 5. This easily could have been a 4.5 star match if it wasn't for that Poison Rana. So that kind of sucks. I mean, I realize that the Poison Frankensteiner or the Poison Rana for short, I mean, I realize it's a difficult move to pull off, but when it's botched, it looks bad. When it's executed right, it looks really good. There's no in between. Shame, this was a much anticipated match, and it kind of underwhelmed a little bit. Basically because of that botch. I think that really affected it overall. Which is a real shame, because these 2 can really go in the ring. But now we get to one of my favorite matches of this card. This might surprise some people. But between this and the AAA Tag Team title match, I'm honestly torn on which one is my favorite match of this pay-per-view. This is the Cracker Barrel Clash. This was actually sponsored by Cracker Barrel and actually had a couple of wooden Cracker Barrels at ringside for these guys to use. Joey Janela versus Jimmy Havoc versus Darby Allin. And of course, these 3 teamed up at Fight for the Fallen and lost, so they basically went at each other afterwards. So this was basically a hardcore style match with all kinds of different weapons and shit like that. And a lot of you might think it blasphemous that I'm going to rate this match higher than, Omega and Pac. I mean, that match had a bad botch in it. I mean, what else do you want me to say? And personally, I'm partial to hardcore matches. I love watching a good hardcore match. And this one had all of the highlights that you could think of. And it made me really think, man, these guys really are trying to kill each other. But yeah, this is one of my favorite This is one of the top 2 matches on the card, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I mean, I know some people probably don't, really like matches like this, but, I do. So, I'm going to be giving it a positive, a very positive rating. Because I love hardcore wrestling. So, highlights of this match. Havoc starts out by stapling himself and saying, yeah, I can do this, no problem. What the fuck can you do? Basically making himself look like a badass. Darby Allin tapes Jimmy Havoc to the chair after Havoc was incapacitated. Then Allin puts thumbtacks in Havoc's mouth and tapes it shut, which is a bit risky because if Havoc swallows a thumbtack, I mean, you could basically puncture, your esophagus, your stomach, your intestines. You can do a lot of internal damage. So that's actually a very risky spot. And then Janela does a super kick. Allin with a tope suicida. And then, of course, his patented sky arm drag, which always looks good. And then he hits his shoulder ride stunner. All of us on Joey Janela. And then Allin was going to go after Janela, but then Havoc from the chair was like, come on! And Allin basically does a somersault plancha onto Havoc while he's still sitting in the chair. And then Janela hits an Emerald Frozen on Allin on the freaking apron. Okay, that is a devastating looking maneuver normally. But an Emerald Frozen onto the apron? You're fucking nuts. Then a funny thing happened because Havoc spit out the thumbtacks and throws them in Janela's face. That was pretty funny. And then Havoc sends Janela into the stairs. Havoc with a Shoryuken, and then turns it into a Samoan driver, which looked pretty good. Havoc gives Janela a paper cut. He brings out one of them freaking laminated AEW signs and starts giving Janela paper cuts. Havoc tries to do a monkey flip on Janela, with Janela still in the chair that they had set up, but Janela flips over and perfectly lands, with the chair sitting down, and it's just like, that was pretty cool. But then Havoc comes up and does like a paper cut kind of thing to his mouth. And then Havoc tries to go for his Acid Rainmaker, which is his Ripcord Lariat. But Janela counters into a Brainbuster onto the chair, which looked really good. And then another what the fuck moment happened when Janela ran at Allin, who was on standing up on the apron, jumps up onto the middle rope, and then does a Canadian destroyer onto Allin, onto the table that was set up outside. And I was just like, oh shit. That looked like it legit hurt. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. These guys are just literally trying to kill each other for our enjoyment. And honestly, kudos to you guys for putting your bodies on the line, because this is nuts. And then Janela tries to go for a moonsault onto Havoc on the outside, but misses when Havoc moves out of the way. Havoc hits Janela with a tray full of biscuits because, Cracker Barrel. That was kind of funny. Now the crowd starts chanting, "We want barrels," which was pretty funny. Oh, you're going to be getting some barrels, I'll tell you that much. Janela hits a lariat. And then Darby Allin, one of his side hobbies is that he's a skateboarder. So what does he do? He brings out a skateboard to use in this match. And there were thumbtacks glued on the bottom of the frickin' skateboard. So Havoc tries to do a chop on Allin, and Allin holds up the skateboard, and Havoc hits his hand on the thumbtacks. Then he hits Janela with the skateboard, which doubles him over. Allin jumps up to the top rope and basically does an ollie, I think it is. An ollie, a can, whatever the fuck you call it. And jumps onto Janela's back, impaling Janela in the back with them frickin' thumbtacks. I'm just like, Jesus. Allin tries to go for a cover, but Havoc pulls him out. sends him into the stairs. Havoc sets up a table, kind of. One of the legs it was kind of at an angle. And Allen does a coffin drop, which sends himself and Havoc into the table. Allen was doing something. I think he was setting up something. Havoc starts shooting staples at Allen, which was kind of funny. And then Allen sets up Havoc on the stairs. Here's another one of the big what the fuck moments of this match. Then Allen grabs one of the Cracker Barrels, climbs up to the top rope, puts the Cracker Barrel behind him, and leaps off, tries to do a coffin drop, and hits nothing but steel steps. And completely freaking crushes the Cracker Barrel. It was a spectacular stunt. And the crowd was like, holy shit, you know. And of course, Havoc had moved out of the way. So that pretty much took Allen out of the match. Janela hits a hanging DDT and a dynamic elbow drop on Havoc. But then Havoc counters a superplex onto the barrel. And Janela's leg went through the barrel, which I don't look like it actually hurt. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if that caused like a Charlie horse or something. And then Havoc hit his acid rainmaker onto the barrel for the 3 count and the win. This match kicked so much ass. I mean, this was without a doubt one of the most entertaining matches of the card and of the year, honestly. I mean, I know it's just a triple threat match with like hardcore style rules, but honestly, I love that shit. It's entertaining as all hell. And these guys just literally put their bodies on the line and delivered one hell of a match. I loved every minute of it, to be honest. I gave it 5 stars out of 5. Yes, this is one of the 2 5-star matches because I enjoyed it that fucking much. So, if you don't like it, too fucking bad. This is how I feel. I'm sorry that I actually enjoyed this. I'm sorry I have, different tastes than you. Deal with it. Alright, let me double check something here real quick. Checking my notes here. Making sure we're still in order. Okay, we are. Alright, so the next match on the card is another tag team match. The best friends of Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor against the Dark Order, Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. This, of course, was the match to determine who would get the first round bye in the AEW World Tag Team Title Tournament. And I'm assuming that the finals to determine the inaugural Tag Team Champions will happen at Full Gear, is what I'm thinking. One of the things about the Dark Order is that they're obviously a heel tag team. And of course, Evil Uno basically, a lot of times, basically acts like a pussy. But from what I've seen, Dark Order just doesn't seem to be over as a heel with the crowd. They're kind of confused about him, and their characters just really aren't getting over with the crowd as heels. It's just met more with. It seems like the crowd reaction is more confusion than anything else, which it's a bit of a shame because, I mean, the Dark Order really is, a talented tag team. I mean, on the Indies, they were known as the Super Smash Brothers. As Player Uno and Player Dos, video game, personalities that they had, which is where the Uno portion of Evil Uno came from, because it's Player Uno and Player Dos is what they were normally called as. But here they're known as the Dark Order with Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. And even though they're talented as a tag team, their gimmicks just aren't getting over with the crowd. So, But my highlights of this match, Taylor with a nice drop kick, the best friends with an assisted splash, Evil Uno acting like a little bitch, even though he's supposed to be like, king shit of Turd Mountain. I mean, if you're going to have, we already have a great chicken shit heel in MJF. I mean, Evil Uno is supposed to be like a badass heel, with the mask and everything. Him acting like a bitch just doesn't really get it for me. It's bitch made pussy shit, and we already have one in MJF, and he plays it to a T. We don't need another one in Evil Uno. Just my opinion. Stu Grayson with a shotgun dropkick. Dark Order with a sidewalk slam dynamic elbow drop combo, which looked pretty good. Grayson with a snake eyes suplex. What that basically is he picks him up in a suplex, and similar to what you do with the snake eyes where you hang him over the top rope. That's what he basically did. He took the suplex and then threw him, into the top rope and hung him out to dry. Trent with a nice lariat. Dark Order with a tornado kick brainbuster combo, which looked really good. Like I said, the Dark Order has a lot of good tag team moves, and their choreography is great. It's just that their gimmick of the Dark Order just doesn't seem to be getting over with the crowd. Trent with his step-up tornado DDT, it looked nice. Taylor with the Shiranui pop-up sit-out powerbomb. Kind of wondering why I read it like that. Wonder if he did the Shiranui first and did the pop-up sit-out powerbomb. I can't remember for the life of me. But Taylor does a somersault plancha to the outside. Trent with a German suplex. And then the best friends do their rocket cutter, basically their rocket launcher cutter combo. Grayson with a double Pele kick to both of the best friends. Uno with a bicycle kick. Then Grayson does a corkscrew plancha to the outside. Uno with a swanton bomb. A guy that size who can, do moves like that, it's just crazy. And then Dark Order does a high knee scorpion suplex combo. Dark Order with a 450 cannonball splash combo, which looked pretty good. The best friends do their various knee attacks where Taylor does like a high knee strike, and then Trent does the Pasako knee. And then the best friends do their soul food half and half suplex combo, which always looks really good. Chuck Taylor with the missile dropkick, and then hits the awful waffle, which is basically like a inverted Michinoku driver on Stu Grayson, but only gets a 2 count when I think Evil Uno breaks it up. And then the Creepers basically attack Taylor, and this kind of pissed me off. I get so fucking sick and tired of outside interference, and this was just another case of that, and it just pissed me off to no end. And then Dark Order hits their Gory Buster Diamond Dust combo. They call the Fatality for the 3 count and the victory. Basically to a very muted crowd. It's like the crowd didn't really give a shit about the Dark Order. So, kind of a shame, because the Dark Order can really go as a team. But like I said, they're just not over with the crowd. But this was definitely a very good tag match, as per the usual. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Then basically the Dark Order tried to carry Trent away, and then the lights went out. And then when the lights came back up, Orange Cassidy appears in the ring, and the crowd actually went freaking nuts. Orange Cassidy, he's basically a guy who basically has this persona of, he doesn't give a shit. And he always has his hands in his pockets, and all this stuff. But then he looked towards, the Creepers, and runs and does like a tope suicida with his hands in his pockets. And then he rolls back into the ring, still with his hands in his pockets, and then does like a kip up with his hands in his pockets. It's like, holy shit, dude. This dude's got some freaking talent. And apparently when he starts to care and goes in the ring, he is really good. And the best friends come back in. Apparently they do have a bit of history with Cassidy. So now they have Cassidy as part of the best friends, and much to the approval of the crowd. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Yeah, another great tag team match. All right, next match on the card is the other female match on the All Out card, I believe. Yep. And this one would determine the other half of the AEW Women's World Championship match in Washington, D.C. Hikaru Shida versus Riho. Of course, Shida was a part. Of course, both of these ladies were part of the 6-woman tag at Double or Nothing, and they were both on the winning team. Of course, this is for even bigger stakes. Who would face Nyla Rose for the Women's Championship? Of course, considering her, record and considering how popular she is right now, it definitely would make sense if Riho won this match, which we'll get to that in a minute. Highlights of this match: Shida with a pendulum backbreaker, Riho with a nice drop kick. Shida hits a knee strike and a knee lift, and then goes back to the well with the pendulum backbreaker again and again, which I'm not really a fan of going back to the well in the same move. Shida with a Boston Crab, which then she transitions into a single crab. And then she picks Riho up in a Canadian backbreaker. So basically focusing on the lower back, trying to get a submission victory, which makes sense. Shida with a running knee to a hanging Riho. Then Riho hits a head scissors takedown and then a coup de grace on the apron. That looked like it hurt for both of them because Riho went tumbling to the outside after she did that. Riho hits a flying crossbody and then a drop toe hold. Shida, I think, countered the 619 into a stretch muffler. Riho with a victory roll stomp, which is one of her patented moves. Shida hits a running knee strike and then does a deadlift suplex, which she just got some strength on her. Even though Riho is not really that heavy, that was still pretty impressive. Shida with a step-up enziguri and then hits a superplex. Riho with a Northern Lights suplex and then hits a hanging coup de grace where Shida was basically hanging, kind of trying to hang on to the top rope, kind of hanging upside down. But Riho then hit a double stomp. Riho with a double knee strike in the corner. Shida hits a Samoan backbreaker, but then Riho does like a scissors on one of Shida's arms, rolls around, and then does like a roll-up pin and gets the 3 count for the win. So Riho will be facing Nyla Rose for the Women's World Championship in Washington, D.C. This was an alright match. I mean, it was a bit slow at times. Felt like it was taking a bit too long. And the moves weren't really spectacular in that sense. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. It was still pretty solid. And afterwards, Nyla Rose came out and basically stared Riho down. And of course, Riho was the one who pinned Nyla Rose in that triple threat match at Fyter Fest. So a bit of history there. And I will be talking about, my feelings on these two going at it for the Women's World Championship and who should win the championship. The answer might surprise you a little bit. Alright, next up on the card, Cody Rhodes against Shawn Spears. Of course, this all came about because of what happened at Fyter Fest, when Shawn Spears basically brained Rhodes with the chair. There wasn't really a whole lot as far as highlights to the match, but it was more storytelling than anything else, which Cody pretty much excels at. So even though there weren't a whole lot of highlights as far as like flashy moves and shit like that, this was still a good match. It was very nice storytelling. So Cody goes after Spears before the match even begins. They kind of go through the crowd. Cody hits a power slam on the floor. Of course, this was also the match where they both had like guys at ringside. And also, there was also something during Cody Rhodes' entrance that kind of pissed Tony Khan off a little bit. where Cody's dog, Pharaoh, was actually getting scared because of the pyro. And even though Cody tried to calm Pharaoh down, it was pretty obvious that Pharaoh didn't want to be out there. So Tony Khan didn't really like that. So they're probably going to axe that, Pharaoh appearances for, in the future. But basically, Cody had MJF at ringside, and Shawn Spears had Tully Blanchard in his corner. So Blanchard was getting involved, and Spears hits a low blow on Rhodes. Cody hit a top rope Frankensteiner. Spears sends Cody crotch first into the ring post. Cody hits his layout uppercut, where he basically drops down, where Spears tried to duck under, something, and Cody lays out and hits an uppercut. Spears with a hanging DDT on the apron. Looked like it hurt. Cody hits a straight kick and then a springboard cutter, and then a water wheel slam. The match spilled onto the outside, and Spears hits his running Death Valley driver onto the entrance ramp. That didn't look like it felt good. But Cody was able to beat the 10 count. Cody hit a crossroads on Spears. And that was when Blanchard and MJF got involved again. And of course, they went at each other. Spears hit a bicycle kick on MJF, which sent MJF back to the outside. And Blanchard basically started going after MJF. And then Arn Anderson comes out to a big roar from the crowd and hits a double-A spine buster on Spears. And of course, him and Tully Blanchard, I think, were a part of the Four Horsemen at one point. So Blanchard was kind of looking like he's seen a ghost. Like, what the hell are you doing, Arn? And from there, Cody basically took advantage. He hit a flatliner on Spears. Looked like he was going to pick up the chair and brain him with it, like Spears did to him. But instead, Cody hit basically the Dusty Rhodes elbow, which was pretty cool. And then Cody picked up the chair, tossed it over to Spears, who caught it. And then Cody hits the disaster kick into the chair, and then hits it up with another devastating crossroads for the 3 count and the victory. Like I said, not a whole hell of a lot of highlights, but the storytelling in this match was excellent. And Cody Rhodes goes over Shawn Spears to get some semblance of revenge on him. This match gets 4 stars out of 5. Another good match. But then we get to what may arguably be the match of the night, and perhaps even the match of the year. It's, what was the official name of it? The Escalera de la Muerte. Basically a ladder match for the AAA World Tag Team Championship. Of course, if you remember, the Young Bucks defended the AAA Tag Team titles against the Lucha Brothers at Double or Nothing, which they retained, but then they lost the AAA Tag Team titles to the Lucha Brothers down in Mexico, and now they are going to be facing each other again in this match, this time a ladder match. The stuff that they did in this match was absolutely insane. I mean, I'm honestly torn between this match and the Cracker Barrel Clash for match of the night. Although a lot of people are going to probably point to this match for being the match of the year. And honestly, I don't blame them, because the stuff that they did in this match, I mean, this is basically a highlight reel. And the aftermath also kind of put this match over the edge. So, highlights of this match. There was a bit of taunting, of course, between the two. And of course, this is Texas Tornado rules because it's a ladder match. And of course, I love those kind of rules. Ray Phoenix hit a running powerbomb. Pentagon with a diving drop kick into the ass of Matt Jackson. The Young Bucks throw a ladder into the Lucha Brothers. We saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of ladders and a lot of tables. There was a lot of wood being used. Nick with an assisted drop kick to both opponents. The Bucks hit the buckle bomb and Zaguri combo, then the slingshot and Zaguri, and the double stomp combo. Lucha Brothers with double super kicks. Pentagon hits a flying crossbody. Phoenix with a somersault plancha over the big ladder to the outside, which was crazy. Phoenix and Nick leap to the ladder. And then Matt and Pentagon get onto the apron. Phoenix and Nick with rolling cutters on Matt and Pentagon off the ladder, which was pretty cool. Phoenix and Nick with double pump kicks, which hit both of them, which kind of staggered them a little bit. And then Matt and Pentagon basically run at the same time and spear Phoenix and Nick through tables on the outside. So the choreography in this one was just absolutely crazy. Pentagon starts hitting thigh kicks on Matt Jackson. Matt counters an Irish whip, but Pentagon slides underneath the bottom rope to the outside. Nick runs up the ladder that was placed in the corner and jumps off the top rope into a sky twister press. That was one of my favorite parts of the match because I was like, holy shit, that was pretty cool. Because Pentagon slid underneath the bottom rope. Looked like he was going to go into the ladder, but slid underneath the bottom rope. Nick reacts by running up the friggin' ladder, jumping onto the top rope and springboarding off of it into a sky twister press. That was freaking cool. And then Matt was hitting the locomotion Northern Light suplexes and eventually sends Ray Phoenix into the ladder. That looked like it hurt. Felix with a Frankensteiner into the ladder. And, ooh, that definitely looked like it hurt. I mean, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if these guys had some like bruises and shit, after this match, because some of the bumps these guys took were just, ooh, it just made you go, damn. That's definitely worthy of holy shit chance, I'll tell you that much. Pentagon hits a super kick. Phoenix leaping onto the ropes and a ladder into a Frankensteiner on one of the Young Bucks. Pentagon with a springboard crossbody. Nick with a super kick. Matt Jackson hits a gorilla press drop into a spear through the ladder, which was pretty cool. Nick, of course, hits his patented springboard X Factor into an Asai moonsault. And then Phoenix tilts the ladder when Nick is on it, but Nick leaps off of basically springboards off of the top rope into a swanton bomb, I think to the outside, which is pretty crazy. And Phoenix gets tilted off the ladder, but springboards into an Asai moonsault, which is like, what the hell are these guys doing? Matt and Pentagon get up onto the ladder, and then Pentagon hits a sling blade off the top of the ladder, which was pretty cool. And then Nick does a diving somersault plancha through the ladder to the outside. I'm just like, what are these guys? I mean, they gotta be running out of ideas at this point. And then Ray Phoenix does a Canadian Destroyer, leaping through the ladder and hitting Matt with the Destroyer. And it's at this point that the crowd starts chanting, "Fight forever." And when a crowd starts chanting, "Fight forever," you got them in the palm of your hand. And it's like, these guys are putting on one hell of a bomber of a show. Like, this match is just straight fire right now. And then another one of the what the fuck moments of this match was when Pentagon does a Canadian Destroyer on Matt off the top of the ladder through a table. Like, good grief, man. These guys are literally trying to kill each other at this point. I mean, I wonder if these guys, were backstage, basically talking to each other. It's like, you know what? Let's just fucking go for it. Let's go for everything. Because with NXT basically moving to Wednesday, Triple H basically laid down the challenge to AEW. He's like, you better bring your best because we are. Well, I'll tell you what, AEW is bringing their A game, if this is any fucking indication. So I'm just going to say this right now. We may be in for, kind of a rendition of the Monday Night Wars of the 90s. Except now it's the Wednesday Night Wars. And it's between NXT and AEW. And if that's the case, American professional wrestling may be in for a resurgence. Because, this is competition at the top of American professional wrestling has what this business has needed for a long ass time. And we're finally getting it. Then Pentagon and Matt get set up on tables on the outside, and Phoenix and Nick Jackson climb up onto ladders and do diving splashes onto tables onto their opponents on the outside. Like I said, a lot of wood is being used here. Nick hits a satellite DDT, which looks sick as fuck. Phoenix hits a super kick. Matt hits a super kick, so we start getting a super kick party. Nick hits a sharpshooter. Matt with a crossface while Nick has the sharpshooter on. Pentagon hits a super kick. And then one of the sickest moments of this match was when Pentagon pushes the ladder with Nick trying to grab the belts. But Pentagon pushes the ladder, and I don't know if Nick was positioned right on the ladder. I mean, he was not on top of the ladder, and it also didn't look like he got a really good push off. And the ladder looked like it was a little bit further away from the ropes than it probably should have been. But the idea was there were two tables set up on the outside, and the idea was Pentagon was going to push Nick off of the ladder, and he was going to fly off and go through both tables. But that's not exactly what happened. Nick actually ended up a little bit short, actually got his feet caught on the top rope, and only went through the closest table. And he went through it hard, and only knocked over the farther table. And it actually looked like Nick got a laceration on his hand because of it. And I was just like, damn. Like, that was a hard bump. And that basically took Nick off for the rest of the match. Or took Nick out for the rest of the match, I should say. And then while Matt and Pentagon are on the ladder trying to go for the belts, Matt pulls off Pentagon's mask, which got a mass boo from the crowd, because that is basically a cardinal sin in Lucha Libre wrestling, to pull off your opponent's mask. From what I could tell, though, it looked like it was planned. Like, I'm pretty sure Matt pulled Pentagon aside and was like, "Are you sure you'll be okay with this?" Because it is a pretty big deal in Lucha Libre wrestling. The mask is everything in Mexican Lucha Libre wrestling. So Pentagon pulls off, or Matt pulls off Pentagon's mask. So Pentagon basically, falls off the ladder trying to cover his face, but is still able to push the ladder out from under Matt, and Matt landed hard on the ladder, which really hurt. But Pentagon rolls to the outside, was able to put the mask back on, and they decide, all right, you know what? You're going to play by those rules. That's when the Lucha Brothers set up a ladder on the ring apron and the guardrail, and hits their Zero Fear finisher, the double stomp package pile driver, on Matt on the ladder. Just pulling out all the stops in this match. Like, holy shit. And then the Lucha Brothers climb the ladder and claim the belts, and they successfully defend the AAA Tag Team Championship. What else can you really say about this match? I mean, this match was excellent. They pulled out all the stops. I mean, it's like, where can they go from here at this point? This was definitely 5 stars out of 5. Abso-frickin-lutely. And if that wasn't enough cheese to add to your diet, then two individuals in a Clinton mask and I think it was a George W. Bush mask. But yeah, these two figures coming out in masks. They attack the Lucha Brothers. They hit Matt with a powerbomb blockbuster a sit-out powerbomb blockbuster combo. And a lot of people are like, who the hell are these guys? And then they stand in the middle of the ring and they rip off their masks, and the crowd just immediately just goes nuts. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's LAX. Santana and Ortiz are in AEW. Holy shit. LAX is All Elite. So, I mean, it's not enough that this tag team division is stacked as all hell. And now you throw LAX on top of this. AEW is serious about making their tag team division the best in the world. They are pulling out all the stops. And bringing Santana and Ortiz on board, they're just solidifying the tag team division in AEW. I mean, you might as well go ahead and say it now. All Elite Wrestling has the best tag team division in the world. There's no question. And this tag team title tournament, if all the tag team matches we've seen so far in AEW are any indication whatsoever, the tag team title tournament is going to be absolute fire. It's going to be one of the best things that happen in wrestling this year, bar none. So I'm legitimately excited for the tag team division because this division right now is just on fire. And, matches like this basically solidify that fact. So I am really excited for AEW's tag team division when it really gets going, when the television show starts. Because I think it's going to be a big focal point. So how are you going to follow a match like that? With the main event, of course, and the crowning of the inaugural AEW World Champion. And of course, this means Chris Jericho versus Hangman Adam Page. And there was some question marks as to who should have been, the inaugural AEW champion. Now, at the end of the day, I think AEW made the right choice. And we'll get to that in a minute. And you might say, well, this match might have been a little bit, unremarkable, especially compared to the previous match. But, I mean, all things considered, considering the type of match that they were following, Jericho and Page put on a pretty good match. There were no visible botches whatsoever. It was nice and choreographed. You even had some of the color introduced into it. With Jericho basically putting over one of Adam Page's moves, which I'll get to that in a minute. But give me 1 second and we'll get into this match. Alright, I apologize if you can hear the air conditioner, but it's starting to get swamp-assy in here because I've had the air conditioner off. But I have the microphone up close and personal. So here we go. The second of our two title matches at All Out. This one for the AEW World Championship. Chris Jericho against Hangman Adam Page. Highlights of this match, and there were plenty. Page, of course, with his fall-away slam. Hit Page with a lariat and a big boot. Jericho, of course, with his missile drop kick that he loves to do. Page counters the walls of Jericho. Hits a tope suicida and a flying lariat. Page actually ducks underneath of Jericho's crossbody to the outside. And then Jericho counters Page's shooting star press attempt to the outside with a code breaker, which looked pretty cool. Jericho knocks Page into the barricade. And then Jericho grabs the bell and rings it. Which was pretty funny. It's like, yeah, I won! No, that's not how it works. Jericho hits a single arm DDT and then a leg trip. And then he hits a senton splash and then does like an arm lock submission hold. And he hits a drop kick. Both start exchanging chops, which both are really good at. Page with a deadlift fall-away slam after rolling through Jericho's crossbody. Page hits a Singapore roll. And then a sliding lariat, basically like a ground-based lariat. Page does a standing shooting star press, which looks really good. Page hits a Russian leg sweep off of the middle rope. Jericho was able to eventually get the walls of Jericho on, but Page counters out of it. And Page hits a rolling elbow. And this is where Jericho basically blighted himself to basically put Page's rolling elbow over. as a devastating maneuver because it busted him open, technically. Jericho launches Page into the top of the turnbuckle, and then Page hits an avalanche swinging neckbreaker, which is one of his patented moves. Page hits another rolling elbow. Jericho hits a snake eyes suplex. Jericho then tried to go for his springboard drop kick, where he springs off the middle rope and drop kicks his opponent, who's standing on the apron. But Page actually counters that with a super kick, which looked pretty good. And then Page hits the buckshot lariat, which basically gets onto the apron, slingshots, somersaults into the ring, and hits a lariat, which looked really good. Jericho locked in the walls of Jericho again, but Page was able to get to the ropes. Page backdrops Jericho to the outside of the ring and then hits a moonsault to the outside, which looked really good. Jericho hits a code breaker. Page hits one more rolling elbow. Then tried to go for another standing shooting star, but Jericho countered it. But after rolling through a couple of times, Page gets Jericho up into the Deadeye, his Dragon Driver finisher, but only gets a 2 count. Page hits another buckshot lariat. Jericho goes for a backslide, but Page rolls out of it, tries to go for yet another rolling elbow, but then Jericho hits the Judas Effect spinning back elbow for the 3 count and the win, and he is the new and inaugural AEW World Champion. And for those of you saying, why would he use a spinning back elbow as his finisher? That looks kind of dumb. I mean, in wrestling terms, maybe, but I mean, have you seen that move in mixed martial arts? There was actually someone who posted some on Twitter who posted some shots of MMA fights with someone doing the spinning back elbow, and basically all 3 of them showed the spinning back elbow knocking their opponent out. Like it's as soon as it connects. So the spinning back elbow is actually one of the deadliest moves in mixed martial arts. And there's some mixed martial arts organizations who've actually banned that move because it's so dangerous. But Jericho wins the AEW World Championship. And you can pretty much tell that the Judas Effect was actually over because the crowd actually popped when he hit it. They were like, oh my God, is this the 3 count? And it was. So it was put over big time. And Chris Jericho is your AEW World Champion. And I gave this match 4.5 stars out of 5. It was a nice follow-up to the epicness that was the AAA Tag Team title match. There were no botches that I could tell. I mean, if there were, they weren't that discernible, to be honest. So I thought this match was very nicely choreographed. Very nice match for the World Championship. And Chris Jericho is your champion. So, as far as the show overall, this was the best show of the year so far that AEW has put on. I'm going to give this show a 9.5 out of 10. I honestly think that the $50 that I spent on this pay-per-view was well worth it. I mean, a lot of the matches were awesome. The Cracker Barrel Challenge was great. The tag team matches were awesome. The Escalera de la Muerte, match of the year candidate for sure. And we actually had a pretty good match for the AEW World Championship. So overall, 9.5 out of 10 is what I'll give AEW All Out. It was that good of a show. So, where does AEW go from here? Well, they made Chris Jericho the world champion. And it was honestly probably the best move they could have done, because Jericho is just... he's probably the most talked about wrestler right now, because after the match, he was walking backstage, and this was on the quote-unquote after show, the post show that they had on their YouTube channel, and Jericho had basically grabbed the mic and was talking all sorts of trash, like he usually does. And then he got to the back and he's like, okay, what am I? You know, he was eating like from a meat and cheese tray. He's like, cheap salami, you know, all this other crap. And then he spots, you know, the champagne. He's like, ooh, a little bit of the bubbly. You want some bubbly? And a new catchphrase was born. And the funny thing is, less than 24 hours after he won the championship, while down in Tallahassee, Florida, he actually lost the belt for a time, because I guess it was accidentally left in his limo, and he actually lost the AEW championship belt for a little while. And honestly, this could have turned into an embarrassing situation for All Elite Wrestling. But instead, it turned Jericho into the most talked about wrestler pretty much in the world for a while. For basically about a week. Basically the week after All Out. Because he, you know, what he did was basically turn it into a storyline. Because on his personal YouTube channel, he basically cut a promo while in his backyard in his pool, and he was basically talking about how some scumbag stole his championship. And then you know, and then he grabs a bottle of champagne. He's like, "Guys, you know, get ready to have a little bit of the bubbly." And he pours some champagne into a glass, sets the glass off to the side, and drinks out of the bottle. I'm just like, what the fuck? And then he's like, "I'm launching a worldwide investigation." And I'm just like, this guy has, I mean, you know, and for Bruce Blitz to basically say that this guy is overrated and say this guy was the ultimate mid-card guy, I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, that is just such a horrible take. Like, it really is, because Jericho has reinvented himself so much over the years, and this is just yet another example of that. And not only that, think about this. His new catchphrase, a little bit of the bubbly. And of course, he also cut another promo after he got the AEW championship back, after the Tallahassee Police Department actually found it. And he cut another promo, and he looked drunk as hell on that one. His face was all red and all that stuff. But his new catchphrase, a little bit of the bubbly, he actually got it trending worldwide on Twitter. And not only that, someone actually suggested to him, hey, maybe you should put that on a t-shirt and start selling t-shirts with a little bit of the bubbly. Well, he did so, and guess what? A lot of the pro wrestling t-shirt companies that sell t-shirts, wrestling t-shirts, that were selling that particular t-shirt of Jericho's, they were reporting that that shirt was the best selling that they'd ever had in a 24-hour period. His catchphrase is printing money, basically. He put it onto t-shirts. I mean, he got it trending worldwide on Twitter, for God's sake. And then he puts it on t-shirts, and it's literally printing money. I mean, could Hangman Adam Page have done that? Probably not. You know, and he was somewhat over with the crowd, but not completely. So there would probably, if he would have won, if they would have put the belt on him, there probably would have been a lot of people like, you know, he probably would have got Roman Reigns, basically, where, oh, he's not ready for the championship yet. It would have been something like that. Jericho, on the other hand, I mean, it's obvious why they put the belt on him. Because, I mean, he is putting it over big time. He's healing it up like nobody's business. And he is basically printing money from a fucking catchphrase right now. So, them giving Chris Jericho the championship was definitely the right move to do, especially since they're going into their weekly television show next, which starts October the 2nd. And him being the champion, you know, it's basically familiar territory because he used to be in WCW back in the day when Monday Nitro was on TNT. So, it's familiar territory. And of course, he's a recognizable name. And having him as the AEW champion, you know, that's a recognizable name holding your championship. You know, so it all makes sense. Um, but where do they go from here with the Women's Championship and the Tag Team Championship? Well, as far as the Women's Championship is concerned, it's Nyla Rose versus Riho on the October 2nd show. Excuse me. And honestly, they could go with either one. Because a couple reasons. Let me explain myself. They could go with Nyla Rose because, one, she has a dominating presence. You know, she has the strength. She has that intimidation factor. And she could basically impose her will on pretty much every other wrestler on the roster. And she could basically use that and her power and her surprising agility to basically, you know, overpower her opponents. And, you know, even though at Fight for the Fallen, no, it was Fighter Fest actually, where she had kind of a lackadaisical attitude. After that loss, it's no longer the case. You know, it's laser focus, and it's called character development. You know, and we basically saw that in this Casino Battle Royal. And what happened? She ended up winning the whole thing. So there's that. So you could definitely put it on her. It would definitely feel legitimate considering her power and intimidation factor. On the other side of the coin, you could also put it on Riho for a couple reasons. First of all, she is massively over with the crowd. Like, it seems like every time she comes out and every time she wins a match, she gets a huge pop from the crowd. So she is very popular on the women's side. Not to mention the obvious sex appeal factor. She's extremely attractive, therefore extremely marketable, incredibly talented as a wrestler. I mean, some of the moves that she does is just crazy good. And the funny thing is, she's only 22 years old, yet she's been in the wrestling business for 13 of those years. She started wrestling at the age of 9, which is crazy to think about. And the 13 years of experience have definitely, you know, paid off because she is incredibly talented as a wrestler on top of that. You know, so there, and of course, as a Joshi wrestler, a Japanese female wrestler, you know, she definitely has that legitimacy factor to it as well. And you have that David versus Goliath matchup between these two. So, you know, I honestly think Nyla Rose and Riho could put on a pretty damn good match. So, honestly, you could go with either one of them to be the inaugural women's champion, and it would make sense for a variety of reasons. Of course, Nyla Rose with her power and her intimidation, and Riho, you know, just from, you know, her flaring good looks and, you know, her popularity, you know, and her talent as a wrestler. So you could go either way with Rose or Riho, and it would make sense. As far as the Tag Team Championship is concerned, you know, in this case, you go with the hot act. And if I were AEW, even though they have not won a match, they've been booked to not win a match yet, I would honestly have Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy win the AEW Tag Team Championship tournament. Because it's pretty clear to me that a boy and his dinosaur is super over with the crowd. I mean, you know, there are cases where, you know, they may not be over yet, or a certain wrestler or team may not be over yet, and you got to be kind of hesitant to put the tag team belts on them too soon, because, you know, you want to build them up, you know, you want to, you know, build that support. You don't really need to do that with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. They are over as fuck right now. And if I was AEW, I would give them the ball and let them run with it. And can you imagine the reaction if they were to win the Tag Team Championship? The roof would come off the fucking place. Not to mention if they beat a super established and well-known tag team like, say, the Lucha Brothers or even the Young Bucks. I mean, seriously, having Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy go over the Young Bucks in the final of the tag team title tournament, that would be huge. That would be like, holy shit, that is a big moment. I mean, that's how I would do it. I mean, because it's obvious that A Boy and His Dinosaur is super over right now, and you go with the hot act. And they are hot right now. So, I mean, if I was AEW, I would definitely go with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy as the inaugural tag team champions. I mean, it's obvious. They're already over as fuck. I mean, sometimes you want to go with the chase to kind of build it up, and get, a certain wrestler's support over. These guys are already over. They are massively over. There is no need to build them up. I would put the tag team belts on them right now because the support is there. And I guarantee you, if they win the tag team championship, especially at Full Gear, the roof will come off the fucking place. I guarantee it. And that's how I would do it. But that's pretty much going to do it. One thing I'm going to do before the end of this video, after I sign off, of course, is show you how my personal rankings for each wrestler overall, men and women, and then of course men's division, women's division, and tag team division, how I would have each wrestler ranked, and basically as a way to kind of, because how AEW is, trying to make records and stuff, actually mean something. Honestly, and they also said they wanted to try to have like a ranking system of some sort. This would personally be how my ranking system goes. For instance, a victory, just in a regular victory, like one-on-one, whether it be singles or tag, is 3 points. If a wrestler takes a pinfall or submission, it's -2. Each wrestler starts with a base of 100 points, by the way. A win is 3 points. A loss, if you take the pinfall or submission, it's -2. If you lose, but you're not but you're not the person who's pinned or made to submit, it's only a -1. And if there's multi-man matches, like if it's triple threat, fatal 4-way, or so on and so forth, it's 1 additional point for the victor, depending on how many additional people there are. Like for a triple threat, it would be 4 points. Fatal 4-way would be 5 points, so on and so forth. In championship matches, if they win the major championship in their division, it's 50 points. However, if they lose it, they lose the 50 points it's kind of a boost to automatically shoot them up to the number 1 rank, basically, because they're the champion. Of course, mid-card championships, I think once they're introduced, it'd be a little bit lower than that, maybe like 20-25 points. Not enough to really overshadow the world champion, but enough to kind of gain their attention, if you know what I mean. But in championship matches, if you defend a championship, it's 5 points. If you lose a championship match, if you're the challenger, it's -5 points. And then in a battle royal setting, if you're eliminated, it's -1 point. And then top 5 finishers get points. 5th would get 2, 4th would get 3, 3rd would get 4, 2nd would get 5, and the winner would receive 10 points. And whoever earned the most eliminations in the match would gain an additional point. So that's basically how the point system works. So just judging by the rankings that I have on the men's side, it doesn't really make sense that Cody is getting a world championship match, considering where he is in my rankings at least. But there is a world championship title defense on the 3rd episode in Philadelphia, I believe. And honestly, right now, I see it as being a rematch for between Jericho and Hangman Adam Page, because Page is still right there at the top. But I think what they might do also is they have Cody go on a bit of a win streak to make him look strong, to basically bolster him, as a credible threat to Jericho. And one of the, I think the main event for the first television show is the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks against Chris Jericho and two partners of his choosing. And if I had to take a wild guess, I think Jericho might choose LAX based on what happened after the Escalera de la Muerte match. I think Jericho will pick Santana and Ortiz as his tag team partners. That's basically my prediction on that. So um, we'll have to wait and see. October 2nd is not that far away. So it'll be interesting to see what all transpires. One more thing, as another little bit of continuity. They also held a press conference with Hangman Adam Page, and guess who came out to confront him? Pac. Continuity. Something that happened basically 4 months ago, and they haven't forgotten it. They actually, have continuity. How about that? Something that has been sorely missing on the WWE main roster, and AEW is just using it to perfection. So I would not be the least bit surprised to see, a program with Hangman and Pac where they have a match at Full Gear, and maybe even like a full program rivalry, basically. So lots of things to look forward to in AEW for the rest of the year. But that's pretty much going to do it. Man, what a long ass review. An hour and 40 minutes long. Oh. 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 Whew. Sorry if I'm a little bit tired. I still gotta watch the frickin' cup race and do the review on that. And the race isn't even, it comes on at 7 tonight. Lord have mercy. But that's pretty much going to do it for today's edition of All Elite Review. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. And here are the rankings that I have for the wrestlers so far. So enjoy that, and I'll see you again next time for another edition of All Elite Review. Bye! Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Have a good one.